It's my boo-boo. I got up at 10, got my coffee, fell back asleep again. And I looked at the watch thinking it's about 11:10, and it was a little after noon. So I've been on afterburner since, catching up, changing into my robes, my blankie. I'm sort of discombobulated by the sudden entrance to satsang that was forced on me. So I don't know quite what to say. So can we start off by anybody asking a question about anything? Can you hear me? Okay.
Edgy, I think I have a question.
Yeah.
I was thinking about why almost every religion seems to have the concept of like eternity, heaven forever, God forever, all that sort of thing. And does like eternity place any does it have a place in what you teach?
No. I've noted that myself, the same phenomena, but I am not aware of a previous life I lived. So when they say that my life continues after this body dies, it just seems like bullshit. This is it as long as you've got your body. What happens when you lose your body? I can't imagine that there is this thing called a soul, which transmigrates over time and maybe to different dimensions. It's too complicated of a formulation. If anybody could show me proof, I'll be glad to see it. I'll even change my religion and become a Bible thumper. Any other questions? Ian, you haven't been here in some time.
Good morning, Ed. You're looking
Hi.
good. New blanket?
Very early morning for you.
Yes, it is. Yeah. No, it's been a bit hard. But things are progressing as normal. They're very, everything is very, very strong all of the time. So yeah, it's 7 months since I had my accident now. So, but I've got a long way to go. Yeah. So day by day, my boy, my friend, day by day.
Okay.
As to my sadhana, nothing really changes. It's as strong as strong as strong, thanks to you.
You blame your happiness on me?
Yeah, you bastard. It's all your fault. Everything's your fault.
Yeah. I've been hearing that all my life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's true. No, I think it's Egerman's fault, actually.
What?
Yeah. I think it's Egerman's fault.
Okay.
He's to blame for everything. Okay.
Are there any questions?
For me, oh God. No, when I listen to Adam there, I know that's a question everybody comes up with eventually, and it's kind of feels irrelevant. Time feels irrelevant. Just as or let's say the contemplation feels irrelevant. The time itself you can make it real or not, but what the hell? Who am I to do that? It doesn't make any difference anyway. So yeah, whether you come back or whether you don't, so what? It's like, is there a check in the mail? You got to wait by the letterbox or what? You know, it feels like another reason to wait for something. Yeah, that's what. Carry on, carry on.
Yes. Comment?
Oh, Ian, glad to see you here. Um, I was listening to one of your old satsangs the other day from back from July of last year, and it was a fairly common theme of giving up all concepts in your mind and thoughts and identity and all that kind of stuff. And as I was listening to it, it just struck me as how hard that is to give up all concepts, not just the ones you don't like or the ones but all of them. Like, and then I started, okay,
Coffee.
what's it now? Ian?
That's all right.
Just and I was realizing that I feel like what I often do is I don't get rid of concepts as much as replace them with something else that's more current or more what's the word? Yeah, current. Like, oh, instead of being an engineer, now I'm a spiritual guy. And then then that whole thing about identity. Like I take my identity from these concepts. And that's the thing that just I don't have a question in there. It's just telling you where I'm at. And not having an identity, not identifying with anything, with any concept, with any part of my life, like I said, engineer, homeowner, husband, cat owner, whatever. It's really hard. And I had a day on Monday, I think it was, where it felt like, yeah, it was I was looser, but today and it's not as loose anymore. I don't feel as loosely tied to my identity and my body and my life. Today I feel more Chris-like.
More what?
Chris-like. Small Chris, like my mind and my this world that I'm seeing in front of me kind of thing. And I I don't know where I'm going on any of that. I'm just trying to tell you where I'm at. And what I'm feeling is that a feeling of it just seems it seems like it's hard to give up that entrenched identity that I've been for, like 60 years. And I don't know if you have any comments on that idea or that where I'm at, or Ian, because I know you've had some issues. I mean, you're laughing because this, and maybe it's timely that I'm bringing this up because of you. I know we've talked in the past. Yeah, I know. Since your accident, like who's Ian anymore, right? And so maybe it's timely that you're here. Maybe you want to say something. I don't know. But that's where I'm at, Ian and Ed. So I just wanted
Yeah,
to
I love you, Chris. Life goes on. That's all. It just every day is different. You know, the idea of an end is the problem, not the solution. The idea that in the future things will be better. Nah, no, this is it, man. It goes on, you know.
You don't know that.
Cassie, hey,
You
yes, I
don't know
do.
that.
No, I don't know it. No, but I do know that it just goes on. I don't know how long it'll go on or if there is an end. but I know that there's no point in contemplating it. Just,
Look,
I mean, I have good
secret
days. I have
is-
bad.
the secret is once you catch on to the truth of who and what you are, you can make a choice. You can either live in that new spiritual world, heaven, whatever. If you totally give up your brain and what the brain has taught you your entire life, because everything in our minds, and that's what runs us, our thoughts and all that, are based on survival, memory, speculation. So all of these spiritual teachings, especially Zen, is I really can't speak to what the world as it is, what we can say about it, and its respective place vis-a-vis me, I. But what I've learned is that the world we live in has two iterations. One is all the concepts we've learned about ourselves and the world. And the other is seeing and experiencing the world without mind. And
Yeah,
that's the goal.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah.
Now, once you can get to this place, minute by minute, sometimes, you can check to see which world you're in. The world of concepts or the world of no thought. Now, the world of no thought has dangers associated with it, because it's so easy to lose. So you go through a period of living with mind as if it's your true home, and then living as this higher being or lower being on a different dimension. And why would we give up the former to live in this new dimension? And the answer to that is, and I know this without a doubt, is when you can live with no mind and make that as your primary identity, you gain immeasurable happiness. The happiness comes from stillness and peace, but the peace is so deep. It's like being in a Grand Canyon of infinite change where things are changing. And to live in that world of no thought, sometimes it's very difficult, as long as you still have residual attachment to the world of thought. The world of thought is not real. It's speculation, conjecture, based on our senses and how our brain puts all of those things together. But the world of no mind is absolutely stunning. Once you get hold of the understanding that there are two worlds, the world of thought And the world, basically, as you can see it most primitively, the secondary benefit is you're so fucking happy. Happiness washes through your body and is everywhere that you can see, hear, and feel. And I remember one Chinese Zen master who I never studied with. When he'd visit our center, I felt an enormous power coming from him. But I certainly didn't know how to achieve it, because there are so many spiritual guides out there with so many techniques or being against techniques, so many medications, so many advanced teachings about the structure of reality, etc. But you have to get rid of all of that. That means you become simple-minded, not complex thinkers. But you see the world, and I can't say as it is because we don't know the world as it is. You'd have to ask the world. But as we live in this world without thought, we become transformed, washed clean, dumb as a rock and happy about it. The salvation is you're now very simple-minded. You tend to be kindly towards people and animals because you, as the crystallized embodiment of all of your past beliefs, falls away. And you're living in the real world. And by the real world, I mean that which is perceived without being inspired by thoughts, the thought world we live in. Now, this thought world is the world we live in until we escape it. It's made up of teachings from kindergarten to the 12th grade to college, filled with ideas, a lot of them conflicting. So you can explore the contradictions between one school and one way of doing things and another. Or you can let the world of thought go, because you see it's not really helping you that much. It's only making you harder to live in the world, because the world that we live in, the human world, is a world of ideas, not of reality. But you take away everything you know, you become a babe in the woods, simple-minded, looking for guidance, you might say, because you don't know what the hell's going on. But you've seen very clearly that the mind creates an illusory reality, and you have to give up the mind. But when you give up the mind, you give up a lot of shit, your whole history, your memories. And now you're living in a reality where there's not a lot of entertainment going on. but you're happy. And it seems natural until one day you realize, I'm so fucking happy. What happened? When did that happen? Really, you can say it happened a year or two ago. And it wasn't a big deal thing. It was just that you realize that you can live in the world without thinking. So the thinking world is the borrowed world. It's the world most of us live by. So we have to figure out, translate my ideas into your language and your world in order to make any impression on you. Unless we can meet in a second place where we hold no thoughts. We don't make judgments. We're just cool. Very, very cool guy. Not swept away by thoughts or supposed emergencies. But you live in the world of no mind. You can see the mind there working in the background. You feel separate from it. And you don't like returning to the so-called human world, whichever one we call real. Because we know the falseness of that world. But in this world of being immersed in your own existence, you find that beingness within you, the sense that you're alive, that you exist. And you spend all of your time exploring that in silence. You explore nothingness. And you explore how the nothingness makes you feel. And you find, too, that the nothingness can take you over because it feels so damn good when it does. It's almost like having a narcotic of some sort. But you're fully conscious with your mind and energies. And because of that, it's a far more exquisite and vivid world than when you were mind dependent. So the whole point of training is not for something like enlightenment, because that's a very subjective term. I'm sure you'll get 30 different descriptions from different people and different spiritual masters in the past. But by seeing what the mind is, this functions that's there to help you build a better world, or one in which you live more gently or more vividly, whatever you want. In that world, you get sucked down into incredible peace and being able to feel your whole body at once with many of the small movements that go on inside. Sometimes the flowing of blood from inside, feeling it, feeling your heartbeat. And realize you're resting in your true self, in beingness, not into that supposedly real external world, because it's not real, it's subjective. It's all a bunch of ideas obtained from science and from spiritual teachers and religious teachers over the years that constructs these various alternative realities, whether it's communism or Hooverism, whatever that is, or Robertism. It's hard to hack your way because it's not clear when you'll know that everything is okay, or whether you're done with all of this processing. As for me, each year seems more powerful living inside myself, the more I discover the energies, the phenomenology of being in the body and the phenomenology of being in the world versus the world with ideas and then the world without ideas. And you get to see how dissimilar these two worlds are. And at a point, you make a choice, because after 20 years of studying meditation, you're able to watch yourself as a human being and also notice the place that mind serves, sort of in organizing the world of thought into a coherent thought pattern, so that it doesn't drive you nuts if there's some sort of confusion in there. The world of concepts is very messy, as I've been told over and over again by many teachers. The world of concepts is very fluid, especially if you're a foreigner to the United States and you come from a different culture and you're immersed in an entirely different culture and you have to relearn everything. And that's a good time to learn that you're not this body and mind. The closest thing that you can come to saying you are is awareness of beingness or beingness. And then you notice not to make those problems of dividing them up, because then they become conflicting. It's just that you now live in a world not burdened by thought. On one hand, this is an enormous freedom from thought, freedom from religion, freedom from politics, freedom from science. And it feels a great relief having escaped from the mind to now living more simply, and in a sense, infantile way of direct perceiving of the world without trying to understand it. Just be in it. Now, there's an understanding that comes with being in the new world versus the old, which is at first you feel very frightened to be without your mind being at least in control of certain things, and then leaving that world to just immerse yourself in the world. On one hand, even after you see the peace that comes out of it, you realize you no longer have any defenses against death, psychological defenses against death. And even longer after that, saying, I accept that. I accept that. You give up the life you've known, give up the known altogether in order to enter a world where you don't know anything about it anymore. You just live in it. Now you can say, how can you live in the world, this new world, without thinking? Because everything in the world is based on thinking. Well, it's very easy. It seems hard at first because we have this conceptual idea. That all this science and things like that, politics, economics, all of these as places of study are wonderful, but we don't choose to live there anymore because it's too goddamn complicated. I just want to be able to wake up in the morning feeling good, getting my coffee, sitting and maybe listening to chanting for half an hour, then see how the world is, whether it still exists today or whether it's been destroyed. And I don't have to think about what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to have for dinner? Because those two thoughts takes us out of living in the real world into a future world, a conceptual future world of dinnerhood or lunchhood. But it's worth it. The peace you feel, it's not like any peace you knew before. And it just grows over time. And just people find it odd that when they come home or they see you on a bus, that you don't seem to be in this world because you're not cueing into the things that they're cueing in because their mind world makes them cue into it. There's a world outside of mind that's so much bigger, more alive, more energetic, and with absolutely no confusion anymore. There's no confusion in this life beyond mind. Confusion is just a mental thing. It comes from knowing too much and knowing too much of different fields that conflict. You know, the world loves people that are so dumb as they can't understand the world anymore. But they're living from their heart. And I don't mean that in a romantic way or even in some compassionate, sympathetic way. But the energy of the totality of our being drops down from our brain into our heart area or the stomach area. And we live, because I know the people that have come to this conclusion, come to this experience that the world of mind is not truth, and the world without mind, that's reality. And I know how these people are. It's hard to describe them, but they're utterly self-confident. because nothing shakes their belief in themselves. They experience themselves from moment to moment, notably in our own sense of presence, and then secondarily, awareness of our own my mouth is dry this morning. It's hard to pronounce it. And I think I got lost anyway in the words. The world of words and concepts, which we so worship in the West, is not real. Because it's not the immediacy of living directly in the world without the mind being operational. Everything at first seems more intense, more beautiful, and more awe-inspiring. And that awe lasts forever. The awe lasts of the miracle of being alive in this world, knowing absolutely nothing about it, but it seems that whatever situation we're put in, we know how to function, whether it's to go to work because a clock wakes us up or go to school. But the real key comes when you learn to do nothing without any schedule. I would not have known that except having gone through it, unless and live loving every moment of being immersed in nothingness and the need for control. It's gone. I'm okay being a poem because the world is so beautiful, so large, so powerful. And I'm part of it when I don't think about it. Because when I think about it, I'm trying to humanize the world into a non-conflicting whole, which can embrace a lot of different people. But it's not a trap, that's a long way to put it, but it's a artificial cohesion of aggregates of different people's visions of what the world should be and what they should be in that world. Where we are now in this civilization is about as far as you can come away from no mind, from being in your true self. And when you know that true self, you'll feel it within yourself, almost like a physical sensation. And there will be physical sensations attached to what I just described. And now it's a constant learning process of just enjoying every day as it arises and responding to any circumstances automatically without thinking, because thinking was never required in these simplified situations. I know thinking is required in quantum mechanics, but stop living in quantum mechanics. I never felt more isolated from the world than when I was studying advanced physics. Quantum mechanics, I didn't care for so much. I liked relativistic points of view, especially the general theory of relativity. But that general theory of relativity doesn't embrace the world we live in. It's about a different world. And that different world explained supposedly teaches how to better live in our own world. But it's a false world, the world of mind. Now, part of when you know this is happening to you, you're leaving the world, is you don't like to read anymore. You don't want to hear about all these profound ideas. Ideas are fun. You can skate on them a long period of time, but too much knowledge tends to make you arrogant because you can feel stronger or better than others because you know more or something like that. But after a while, you realize what a bullshit point of view that is. It's a point of view that poisons the world and our own worlds while we're at it. Right now, I have no mind. And yet somehow I'm blabbing to you. I don't know how it works. I guess you can call it auto bullshit. It generates itself. David, Claire, do you have any questions? Or do you want to offer some answers? Are you speaking? I can't see.
We don't hear you, but you're not muted.
We don't hear you, David. When confronted with computer problems, that's the common answer, including me.
Are the headphones plugged in?
The headphones can be plugged in, but there's no microphone on that setup he has. Any other questions? Fu and you, David. You disappointed us. You didn't know how to enter the airwaves. You're an utter failure. Go smash yourself in the head with something. Adam.
Hey, Ed, I'm sorry if I may interrupt. I really
Okay.
appreciate what you said because one thing I really related to that you said was that something about being an aggregate person rather than myself. And I really related to that as you were saying, and I could feel that, or that my whole, I don't know, identity, the way I feel in my mind is like a puzzle, like a little bit of school, a little bit of my mother, a little bit of you, a little bit of,
Exactly.
That's what it, and I feel that, and that's I feel like that's trapping or concealing who I really am and my authentic identity. And you put it into words that I really, as soon as you said it, I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm feeling, that I feel like I don't have my own authentic identity. I rather have an aggregation of the identities I've accumulated over my life. And that's you hit it right on the head. That's exactly what's been my, let's call it my dilemma, my issue lately, is I'm not me. I'm this made up collection of things that I think other people think I should be feeling or doing or saying or believing. And I appreciate you helping me identify that and coming here. And I'm basically coming here to identify these, I don't know what to call them.
Ghosts.
False, what's that? Go ahead.
Ghosts.
Ghosts, yes. And I feel like at least I can see that I don't have them as my default anymore. They're still there. They still do keep. I'm not disidentified with them, but I feel like at least I see it now. I can at
Yes.
least understand, and I don't have to. And I can't say to myself, okay, I see it. Now crash. It's all gone and I'm free. It doesn't work like that. I can't just make myself be free of that. If because I want it and because I see it. But
Well, typically enlightenment is when we first see it.
okay,
So you're past that point.
because
Now
I
you're
know I'm not.
working into the post enlightenment recognition state. There's a point in time where we see this, the two worlds,
Yeah.
and you shift to living more and more with your own inner sense of presence and existence and
Okay.
life force, and you can readily identify it as belonging to you and not part of any other conceptual world or any other physical world. You're your own being, and the best thing you can do is just rest in yourself, because you can't understand it. If you try to understand it, you're back in the original thought world.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's that was another thing I was experiencing with it. That understanding that I'm this aggregate is my mind. It's another part of my mind saying, "Oh, I understand now. Now what do I do about it?" And I just realized how it's like mind upon mind upon mind upon mind. My mind is always trying to understand who I am and my
Yes,
authentic self.
yes.
And it's like this trap I'm in. I feel like, oh, goody, I just realized I'm an aggregate. Wait a minute, that's my mind thinking wait a minute, that's my mind thinking that I'm thinking I'm in an aggregate. I feel like I'm in this endless loop at the moment of
So
mind.
the key for you is to stop thinking about this knot,
Okay.
and instead approach it by not thinking as much as possible, so that you rest in your body and the mind's not working there. Where the mind may be working, but it's in the background and you could just ignore it.
Right.
This is the practice I recommend for most people, because I think it's far more direct than anything else. Robert and Ramana have the problem of trying to wrap individual morality into psychology, spiritual psychology, and wrapping them all together in a coherent pattern so that they can compete with other ideas in the world for people to follow them. But I don't remember Robert ever being concerned about the future or things he hears on the radio about politics, etc. Although he used to say the world was far more interesting when the populations went into the hills above a big battle to watch how the outcome of ancient battles. They used to use that as a spectator sports. But the underlying idea is that the mind and how it's trapped by ideas and thinking is not a very good thing to be dominated by. If you want to use it once in a while, fine. But don't let it tell you that you're this, this, and this, and this, because that doesn't help you one bit. The only way you can truly know yourself is to stop thinking about it and just rest in yourself. And you'll immediately collapse backwards and you'll feel your body relaxing. And then at some point, your mind drops down in a very rapid fashion into the chest and gut, and you explode into the world of no thought. That's typically called enlightenment. You've escaped the world of mind and get into direct involvement in the world, the way it's truly seen without mental devices and naming and thoughts and physics and chemistry. Anybody else? Esselina, who are you? It's a
I-
trick question.
Yeah, I was going to say that I am you. How is that?
No, that's too bullshitty.
Oh, that's the only thing I came up with. Well, that's just.
Okay, we'll go to the source. What about Mark?
Okay, so what I'm about to say may or may not be useful, but when I went through some like anxiety reactions in the last couple of years, what I decided was when these anxiety reactions happen, I'm going to allow in beingness at the same time. So at first, the anxiety was so strong that the beingness was only like a tiny bit. But I persisted. I said, no, I'm not going to allow this reaction to deprive me of myself. So I allowed a little bit of beingness in there. Over time, the amount of beingness, instead of like 3%, it became like 25%. Eventually, it became like 50-50. And, it took maybe a year or so, but eventually I reached a point where the beingness was dominant and the anxiety is still there, but the reactions are not added onto anymore by my attitude or by the reactions of the apparently separate self or by the ego. So that was my journey. It may or may not apply to anyone else, but that's how I dealt with it. The other thing I want to say is that, Ed, you were talking about the apparent control of the mind, the understanding of the mind, the safety and security of the mind. But it's all nonsense, because all that control, all that understanding, all that security is based on an illusion. It's all based on something that's demonstrably not true, because there is no separate self in actuality. It's merely compiled of thoughts and emotions and bodily sensations in rapid succession and habitual patterns that seem to imply that we are a separate self. But in reality, there is no separate self, because it's all emptiness. And in reality, the mind body does perfectly fine on autopilot almost all the time. There is no need for an apparently separate self to be deciding on anything or planning on anything, or most of the time. I'm not talking about like unusual circumstances or emergency situations. I'm talking about habitually. There's no need for any of that. And the proof of it is that the whole existence that the ego creates generates suffering, and that suffering is what brings us here. So if it was also fine and dandy, why is the system continually, the ego continually shows that its world is a failed world? It doesn't work. And it creates suffering because it's based on lies. It's not based on lies, it's based on an illusion. And it's not based on truth. So
And how do you find truth?
you come here and do the things that Edgy recommends and listen to his
Such as.
Such as sink into the body, slow down the mind, go into the feeling of being the the feeling of just go into your feeling, the physical feeling, the energetic feeling, whatever it is you're feeling, just sink into that and do it at least twice a day for half an hour at a time, and any other time that you feel up to it, that it feels good. And it could, because, and over time, this can become your natural way of functioning. And I also want to say that the world without thought, the world of the self, is infinitely more nuanced than the previous world. Infinitely more nuanced, infinitely more full. One is naturally without doubt, without fear, without confusion, because one is grounded in that which is real, which is you call it the zero state. So there's this inner clarity and this self-validation that continually happens, because when you're feeling so great, why do you want to go back to the old way? Why do you want to change it? You don't want to change it. The old way's always there. You'll never lose it. It's ingrained in you for life anyway. So I hope that helps.
That's good. Very good. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Mark, it's funny, huh? What is how did you do that? What program did that?
Ask Vasilina. She knows how to do it.
Okay, I will. Are there any other questions? I think if you can imagine you wake up in the morning, you lie there, and you just naturally don't do anything except sink into the self. Do that more often. When you're sitting down on the bus, I know you can't do it the entire period of the bus ride, otherwise you'll miss your stop. But maybe you can set the time on a watch or some other device. And for 15, 20 minutes, just experience yourself without thinking about it or naming anything involved, and just sitting there in happiness over your journey on bus. Every day, 5 days a week, you can do that. And more than that, ignore religion, ignore philosophers, ignore science, ignore the signs on the street. You say that's impossible to do, or you'll kill yourself or something like that. It's not. When you come to know mind, everything is so much simpler and quicker and so much more intense. Over the years after awakening, something else came into me. Periodically, I would have experiences of feeling my sense of self on the inside with no mind, suddenly growing in intensity. It would get bigger and bigger and bigger. The feeling of my body, feeling the energies that I can feel going through me, hearing the external world. but not thinking about any of it anymore. I felt more and more powerful. And this has happened on and off for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's hard to find anything in any scriptures that talk about feeling more and more potent instead of less and less, because you're not using the mind anymore. But at least it was my experiences that my own life energies were perceived directly, and more as I watched it, it would grow and grow and grow until I felt as powerful as a rhinoceros or a bull elephant. It's kind of amazing experience. It happens from time to time. But the idea is to live with no mind. How do you do that? How do you do that? Well, meditation helps you recognize that there is a different world that exists when you're in samadhi. And if you're aware of it, hold on to that awareness of how you appear to be separate from the body and the mind and increasingly powerful. I call this the life force. The life force in us, which is, according to Robert, karma working itself out in us. But it does so in a way that has the appearance of an intelligence behind it. I don't know. It's just that interesting things happen when you get close to your core and resting in your core self. And you will realize the difference between living in the world of thought and at the world at the same time, and then living in the world without thought. It's a big, big, big difference. Most of the time we can just observe there's thought and no thought, but we haven't learned how to stay in no thought while the world goes on around us. And that's a talent that you have to spend some time at developing. There'll be a test on this theory next week. Anybody have any other questions? I don't know what time it is.
I have one, Edgy.
Okay.
When we're not meditating, what can we do to try to, live in awareness and not live in the mind? Do you have any tips or guidance? It's easier
Alcohol.
when I'm sorry?
Alcohol. It's a wonderful dissolver of the mind. Unfortunately, coming back into the body, what it is you have to discover that there's a self of beingness prior to where you are now, combining both beingness and mind stuff. Because the mind stuff over time predominates. You're trying to reverse that and leave the world of thoughts and of what if behind, and just more and more rest in yourself. That's why I tell people so often, relax. Just drop it down into yourself. It's a very simple meditation. You sit down in a bus seat, take some deep breaths and let them out. Look and feel inside for you, for your sense of beingness. And just hang around in beingness for a long while. And these other things will come to you. These seeing that the world of beingness that you're in is different from the world of humans with all of their thoughts and rules and so forth. Just see the world purely without obfuscating concepts. And do that, and it really, 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 really does work. So just be quiet and feel into yourself. Look into yourself with your blind eyes, your eyes turn inward. And it's imaginative look, it is, but it's important to get the attention to go downwards towards your core, not upwards towards your mind. And you just sit in meditation, noticing how the world is different when you have no thoughts from when you have thoughts. Now, you don't have to practice this in mind all the time because you'd be always in your thoughts analyzing, but just catch yourself from time to time when your mind has stopped and the world, however, will seem very nice to you. And then 3 hours later, you could be in an argument and lose everything, but that's all right. You're gaining a key into leaving the world of man and entering the world of Mark or Claire or Catherine without thought. The thoughtlessness is the key. But how many people know how to be thoughtless? That's what meditation is about. Trying to, what some of the Korean Buddhists do is they give you a koan so that your mind can become one-pointed on the mind or on the problem. And you solve that koan and it loosens things up in you, so to speak. So, as often as possible, just sit or lie down. Sink into yourself. And observe the world from this place of no mind. Just get to know it and live in it until you see how really, really cool this living is as compared to before. Okay. Time for one last question. Did that help you, by the way, Catherine?
I'm just testing my microphone. Yeah. Oh, wow, I'm on the air now. Wow.
What's that?
I'm on the air now.
And now that you're on the air, what are you going to do with it?
Okay. Now that you can hear me, I don't know what to say. Except, thank you.
You
Thanks.
could say, "Oh, Ed, go fuck yourself." That's too mental. That's my style. Anyway, I love you all. Take care. Until Sunday, and I can insult you some more. Bye-bye. I love you all.
Bye-bye.
I love you all. Love you.